was living alone in a small rental house just outside town when this happened. It was a one-story place at the end of a short, dead-end road. There were only 5 houses on the street, and at night it was usually quiet. I worked from home doing freelance graphic design, so most days I didn't leave unless I had to get groceries. I didn't get visitors often. My friends usually texted before coming over. That's why the first knock stood out. It was around 8:45 at night on a Thursday. I was in the living room watching TV when I heard 4 firm knocks on the front door. I muted the TV and waited, thinking maybe I imagined it. Then there were 2 more knocks. I got up and walked to the door. There's a small peephole in the center of it. When I looked through, I saw a man standing on my porch holding a medium-sized cardboard box. He was wearing a dark jacket and a baseball cap. He looked normal, maybe mid-30s. I opened the door but kept the chain on. He immediately said that he had a delivery that required a signature. He read a name off a small handheld device. It wasn't my name. It wasn't even close. I told him he had the wrong address. He looked down at the box, then at the device, then back at me. He read the address out loud. It was my exact address. I told him no one by that name lived here. He stared at me for a second longer than necessary. Then he said he must have been given the wrong information and would take it back to the truck. I watched him walk back down my driveway. I expected to see a delivery van or at least a car parked somewhere nearby, but there was nothing. He walked past my mailbox and turned the corner at the end of the street. I didn't see where he went. I shut the door and locked it. I told myself it was just a small company delivery, or maybe a contractor, driver without a marked vehicle. The next night, at almost the exact same time, there were 3 knocks again. This time, I didn't open the door right away. I went to the peephole first. It was the same man with the same jacket and box. I didn't open the door. I just spoke through it and told him he already came by and that no one with that name lived here. He didn't answer right away. Then he said he just needed a signature and that the system showed the package had to be delivered tonight. I told him I wasn't signing for someone I didn't know. There was a long pause. Then he said okay and stepped back from the door. I stayed at the peephole. Instead of walking away right away, he stood at the edge of the porch looking at the house. He slowly turned his head toward my front windows, then toward the side of the house, then back at the door. After about 15 seconds, he finally walked down the driveway. Again, I saw no vehicle. That's when it started to feel wrong. On the 3rd night, there was no knock. I actually felt relieved. I thought maybe he figured out the mistake. On the 4th night, I was in the kitchen washing dishes around 9 p.m. when I heard 4 knocks. It wasn't on the front door. It was on the side of the house near the dining room window. I slowly walked into the dining room and looked toward the window, but no one was there. Then there were 4 more knocks at the front door. I went to the peephole, and it was him again. But this time he wasn't holding a box. His hands were empty. I didn't say anything. He knocked again. Then he stepped back and looked directly at the peephole. I stepped away from the door so he couldn't see movement and didn't make a sound. After about 30 seconds, he turned and walked away. I waited 5 full minutes before checking the windows. I walked around the house with the lights off and looked through the blinds. I saw him standing across the street near the tree line. He was just standing there, facing my house. After maybe a minute, he walked off into the darkness. I relocked every window and door again, even though they were already locked. The next day, I called the local police non-emergency line and explained what had been happening. The officer I spoke to said it sounded like someone trying to verify occupancy. He said sometimes burglars will knock to see if someone answers before trying to break in later. He told me to install cameras if I could and to call 911 if the man came back. That night, I left all the lights off in the front of the house and stayed in my bedroom. Around 8:45, right on time, there were 4 knocks. I didn't respond at all. After a few seconds, 4 more, then silence. I waited about a minute. Then I heard something else. A soft thud against the back of my house. And then another. I realized it sounded like someone testing the back door. I grabbed my phone and quietly walked into the hallway. I could hear the back door knob turning slowly, stopping, then turning again. I called 911 like I was instructed and whispered that someone was trying to get into my house. While I was on the phone, the knocking started again at the front door. The dispatcher told me officers were on the way. The back door knob kept turning. There was more than one person. Then I heard the sound of something metal scraping lightly against the door frame. After about 30 seconds, everything stopped. Even though it was completely silent, I stayed on the phone until the police arrived. When they searched outside, they found fresh pry marks on the back door near the handle. The officer told me that if I hadn't been home, the door likely would have been forced open. They drove around but didn't find anyone. The next night, I stayed at my brother's apartment across town. Around 9 p.m., my phone rang. It was my neighbor. She said there was someone standing on my porch knocking repeatedly for at least 5 minutes. I told her to call the police. Officers arrived and questioned him. Later, they told me the man claimed he was delivering a package, but he had no company ID and no vehicle. They warned him to stay away. 2 days later, he was arrested trying to break into another house. In his car, they found empty boxes and a fake handheld scanner. He admitted everything. He would knock with fake packages. If someone answered, he marked the house as occupied. If no one answered, he came back later to break in. Hearing that made me realize how close I came. If I had ignored the door early on, I might not have been there when he came back. I moved out 3 months later. Now, I never open the door at night unless I know exactly who it is.